Every night, David Carter made the same promise. Tomorrow will be different. Every morning, he broke it. At 5 a.m., his alarm rang. His hand reached out automatically. Snooze. 9 minutes later, snooze again. By the time he finally got out of bed, the sun was already high, his phone was full of notifications, and his mind was already exhausted before the day had even begun. David believed his problem was laziness. His friends agreed. His boss certainly did. Even his ex-wife once looked him in the eyes and quietly said, "You always want a better life, but you never become the person who deserves it." Those words haunted him for 3 years. Yet the truth was something almost nobody understood. David wasn't lazy. His brain had simply become addicted to comfort, to instant rewards, to postponing pain. Psychology calls it present bias. The human brain naturally chooses immediate comfort over future success. And unless someone interrupts that loop, people can spend an entire lifetime believing their failures. This isn't just David's story. It may be yours. Stay until the end, because the lesson David discovered had nothing to do with waking up early. It had everything to do with becoming someone new. David worked at a distribution warehouse on the edge of the city. Not because he loved the job, because it was the only place still willing to hire him. Every day looked exactly the same. Wake up late, rush, skip breakfast, fight traffic, arrive stressed. Work 12 exhausting hours, come home too tired to think, then numb himself with YouTube, social media, and cheap fast food. Psychologists call this living in reaction mode, when every decision you make is simply a response to whatever happens around you. You don't choose your day chooses you. David didn't realize it, but every habit reinforced the identity he secretly believed. I'm just an average guy. I'm always behind. I'm not disciplined. The brain loves consistency, even when consistency is destroying your future. Every night, David promised change. Every morning, his identity quietly won the argument. Until one rainy Tuesday, everything changed. Tuesday, October 14th. It began like any other day. David overslept, skipped breakfast, raced through traffic, and arrived 9 minutes late. 9 minutes. His supervisor didn't yell. He simply handed David a folded envelope. "We're reducing staff." "I'm sorry." That was it. 12 years, gone in less than 30 seconds. David walked out carrying a cardboard box, one jacket, one coffee mug, one family photo. Everything he had built fit inside a single box. As rain soaked the parking lot, he sat in his old pickup truck staring at the steering wheel. His phone vibrated. It was his daughter, Emily. She had left a voicemail. "Hi, Dad. My school play is this Friday. I know you're probably working, but if you can come, I'd really like that." David listened 3 times, then looked down. He didn't even have enough money for gasoline. That afternoon, sitting alone in a public library just to stay warm, David found himself staring at an old man reading quietly near the window. The man looked ordinary, but unlike everyone else, he wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't checking his phone. He simply sat there, reading, as if time belonged to him. David had no idea that meeting this stranger would completely change the way he understood success. The old man noticed David first. "You've been pretending to read the same page for 15 minutes. David smiled awkwardly. "I guess I'm not hiding it very well." The man closed his book. "My name is Arthur." "Retired psychology professor." David introduced himself. Without thinking, he told Arthur everything. The divorce, the debt, the lost job, his daughter, the guilt. Arthur listened without interrupting. When David finished, he expected advice. Instead, Arthur asked one question. "What do you believe about yourself?" David frowned. "I don't understand." Arthur leaned forward. "Not what happened to you. What do you believe you are?" David laughed. "I don't know. I'm just a guy who always messes things up." Arthur nodded slowly. "There it is. The sentence that's been controlling your life." David looked confused. Arthur continued, "Your habits don't create your identity. They protect it. If deep inside you believe you're someone who always fails, your brain will quietly guide your choices until reality matches that belief. Not because you're weak, because the brain hates inconsistency. Psychologists call this identity consistency. People fight to remain the person they believe they are, even when that person is miserable. David sat frozen. For the first time, someone wasn't talking about time management or motivation. They were talking about him. Arthur smiled. "If I asked you to wake up at 5 tomorrow, you probably could. For a week, maybe 2. Then you'd quit. Not because waking up is hard, because your identity would pull you back. You don't need a better alarm clock. You need a different story." The next afternoon, David arrived at the library exactly at 5. Arthur was already there, not with a motivational speech, not with a stack of self-help books, just a blank notebook and a single black pen. Arthur pushed them across the table. "Write down the kind of man you want to become." David hesitated. "I thought you were going to teach me how successful people think." Arthur smiled. "I am." They begin with identity. David slowly wrote, "A reliable father, a disciplined man, a lifelong learner, a man who keeps his promises." Arthur nodded. "Good. Now cross out every goal." David looked confused. "What?" "I said, cross them out." Reluctantly, David drew thick black lines across every sentence. "Now," Arthur said, "write only one sentence." David stared at the empty page. Arthur leaned forward. "You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So, who are you?" After a long silence, David wrote only 6 words. "I am someone who shows up." Arthur smiled. "There. That's your new identity. No millionaire, no CEO, no perfect man. Just someone who shows up." Because people don't wake up at 5 every morning because they are motivated. They do it because that's simply who they are. For the next 90 days, David had only one rule. Not to become successful, not to become rich, not even to wake up at 5. His only job was to become someone who always showed up. The first morning, David woke up at 5. Not because he wanted to, because he had promised himself he would. He didn't run 5 miles. He didn't meditate for an hour. He didn't read 20 books. He simply made his bed, drank a glass of water, opened his notebook, read 1 page, then took a 10-minute walk outside. That was it. The second day, he did the same. The third day, the same. By day 10, nothing had changed. His bank account looked exactly the same. He was still unemployed, still anxious, still rejected by employers. By day 20, he almost quit. He looked at his notebook and whispered, "This isn't working." That afternoon, he returned to Arthur. "I've done everything. I wake up early, I walk, I read, I journal. My life is exactly the same." Arthur nodded. "I know." David stared at him. "You knew?" Arthur smiled. "Of course." The bamboo tree spends years growing underground before anyone sees a single leaf. Behavior works the same way. You are growing roots. The world can't see them yet, but neither can you. David sighed. "So what do I do?" Arthur looked directly into his eyes. "You keep showing up. Because discipline isn't what changes your life. It's the proof that you've already become someone different." For the first time, David understood something. Maybe success wasn't delayed. Maybe he had been measuring the wrong thing. By day 35, nothing extraordinary had happened. David still wasn't wealthy. He still drove the same rusty pickup truck. His apartment was still small. His future was still uncertain. But something invisible had already changed. He no longer argued with the alarm clock. He no longer negotiated with himself. Every morning at 5, his feet touched the floor before his mind had a chance to make excuses. Arthur once told him, "The strongest habits are the ones that require the fewest decisions." David finally understood. Discipline wasn't about having more willpower. It was about removing the daily debate. Every small promise he kept became another vote for the person he wanted to become. One vote, then another, then another. By day 42, David noticed something strange during a job interview. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply answered honestly. When the interviewer asked, "What makes you different from other applicants?" David smiled. "I don't know if I'm better, but I know one thing. I always show up." The interviewer paused. No rehearsed speech, no fake confidence, just certainty. Sometimes people don't trust confidence. They trust consistency. David walked out of the interview unsure if he'd get the job. But for the first time, he wasn't disappointed. Because he realized something. Success had stopped being his destination. It had become his direction. 3 days later, David received a phone call. It wasn't from the company he'd interviewed with. It was someone else. A man named Michael, the operations manager from another logistics company. "We heard about you." David frowned. "Heard what?" Michael laughed. "The interviewer you met last week couldn't hire you. But he couldn't stop talking about you. He said, 'If you need someone dependable, hire David.'" David sat in silence. For years, he thought opportunities came from talent. Now he realized they often came from reputation. And reputation was simply repeated behavior. David accepted the offer. The salary wasn't spectacular, but it was honest work. More importantly, it gave him something he'd been missing for years. A chance to prove his new identity, every single day. Weeks passed. His manager noticed that David always arrived 10 minutes early. He never blamed others. He kept detailed notes. He volunteered to solve problems nobody wanted. One afternoon, the warehouse software suddenly crashed. Panic spread across the office. Everyone waited for instructions. David quietly opened his notebook. Months earlier, during those silent mornings, he had been teaching himself spreadsheets, inventory systems, and basic logistics. Not because anyone asked him, because someone who shows up prepares before opportunity arrives. Within an hour, David had created a temporary manual tracking system. The warehouse kept running. The manager stared at him. "Where did you learn this?" David smiled. 5 o'clock in the morning. Emily slowly stood up. She was holding a single white flower. Its petals had already begun to curl. She smiled. "I knew you'd come." David felt something break inside him. Not because she was angry, not because she cried, because she still believed in him. Children have a strange way of measuring love. They don't count your money. They don't remember your job title. They remember whether you showed up. David knelt in front of her. "I'm sorry. For all the birthdays. For all the school plays. For every promise I broke." Emily looked at him quietly. Then she asked one simple question. "Are you going to disappear again?" David couldn't answer immediately, because for years that answer would have been yes. Instead, he took a slow breath and replied, "No, not anymore." Emily hugged him tightly. For the first time in years, David wasn't thinking about promotions or success or waking up early. He was thinking about one thing. I'm finally becoming the father she already believed I could be. Weeks later, Arthur invited David back to the library. The same table, the same chair, the same notebook. Arthur smiled. "So, did waking up at 5 change your life?" David laughed. "No." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "Waking up at 5 didn't change my life. It revealed who I was becoming." Arthur's smile grew wider. "Exactly." Arthur closed the notebook one final time. "Most people think discipline creates identity," he smiled. "But psychology tells us something different. Identity creates discipline. When someone truly believes, I am a healthy person, they stop negotiating about exercise. When someone believes, I am a reliable father, they stop negotiating about showing up. When someone believes, I am someone who keeps promises, they stop negotiating with the alarm clock. David looked down at the notebook. The first page still contains 6 simple words. I am someone who shows up. Arthur pointed to them. That sentence changed your future. Not because the words were magical, but because every morning you proved them true. The world often celebrates dramatic transformations, but almost every meaningful change begins invisibly. One quiet morning, one difficult choice, one promise kept, again and again and again. Maybe that's why the sunrise has always fascinated humanity. It doesn't arrive all at once. It begins with a thin line of light that quietly pushes away the darkness. Your future works the same way. It doesn't appear overnight. It arrives, one morning at a time. So if you decide to wake up tomorrow at 5, don't do it because millionaires do. Don't do it because someone on the internet told you to. Do it only if those quiet hours help you become the person you truly want to be. Because waking up early, without changing your identity, is just losing sleep. But changing your identity can change everything. And maybe, just maybe, your greatest opportunity is waiting on the other side of tomorrow morning. Before you leave, I'd like to ask you something. Not what time you'll wake up tomorrow, but who are you becoming? If your answer isn't clear yet, take a piece of paper tonight. Write one sentence, not a goal, not a dream, just one identity you want to live up to. Then, tomorrow morning, do one small action that proves it's true. Maybe that's making your bed, reading one page, taking a 10-minute walk, calling someone you've been avoiding. It doesn't have to impress the world. It only has to convince your future self. If David's story reminded you that it's never too late to become someone new, leave a comment with just 4 words. I will show up. Not for me, for yourself. Because years from now, you probably won't remember this video, but you may remember the morning you finally decided to stop negotiating with the person you wanted to become. If this story spoke to you, subscribe for more stories where psychology, real life, and timeless wisdom come together. Not to promise overnight success, but to help you build a life that lasts. See you at sunrise. Before you leave, I'd like to ask you something. Not what time you'll wake up tomorrow, but who are you becoming? If your answer isn't clear yet, take a piece of paper tonight. Write 1 sentence. Not a goal, not a dream, just one identity you want to live up to. Then, tomorrow morning, do 1 small action that proves it's true. Maybe that's making your bed, reading 1 page, taking a 10-minute walk, calling someone you've been avoiding. It doesn't have to impress the world. It only has to convince your future self. If David's story reminded you that it's never too late to become someone new, leave a comment with just 4 words. I will show up. Not for me, for yourself. Because years from now, you probably won't remember this video, but you may remember the morning you finally decided to stop negotiating with the person you wanted to become. If this story spoke to you, subscribe for more stories where psychology, real life, and timeless wisdom come together. Not to promise overnight success, but to help you build a life that lasts. See you at sunrise.